How to find happiness in small things. James and Emily Carter lived in a modest suburban home on the edge of Willow Creek. Their life, by most measures, was ordinary. James worked long hours as a mechanic at a local garage, while Emily managed the household and occasionally took on freelance graphic design work. They had 2 children, Ethan, age 10, and Luke, age 7, both energetic and full of curiosity. Despite the busy routines, life often felt heavy. James and Emily found themselves preoccupied with bills, deadlines, and responsibilities. There were nights when they would sit quietly after the children were asleep, sipping tea in the living room, exhausted, and wondering if this was all life had to offer. Happiness seemed like something distant, almost unreachable. One rainy Saturday morning, Emily woke up to the sound of soft raindrops tapping against the window. She glanced at the clock and saw that the children were still asleep. James was already up, getting ready for work. She quietly made a cup of coffee and sat on the porch, watching the rain drizzle over their small garden. The scene was simple, peaceful, yet it felt oddly beautiful. She realized she hadn't taken a moment to just watch the rain in years. Later that day, while James was at work and the children were playing quietly inside, Emily decided to bake cookies with Ethan and Luke. It was messy, with flour on the counter and dough on the children's hands and faces, but their laughter filled the kitchen, making Emily forget about the endless to-do lists. James returned home, tired, but when he walked in and saw the mess and the smiling faces, a warmth spread through him. He joined in, rolling dough with the boys, laughing when Luke's cookie looked more like a pancake. That evening, the family sat down together to eat the slightly burnt but delicious cookies. They shared stories about their day. Ethan spoke about a new book he had started reading, and Luke talked excitedly about a bug he had found in the garden. James listened intently, realizing that these small moments, the laughter, the stories, the simple act of being together, were what truly mattered. Over the next few weeks, the Carters began to notice the happiness hidden in everyday moments. They started small rituals. Sunday evenings became family walk nights around the neighborhood. They talked about anything and everything, their favorite movies, the shapes of clouds, silly jokes. Emily kept a small notebook where she and the children would write down little things that made them happy each day. James began to notice how calming it was to just sit on the porch with a cup of coffee before work, listening to the quiet morning sounds. One particularly warm afternoon, the family decided to have a picnic in the backyard. Emily spread a blanket on the grass, James grilled some sandwiches, and the boys ran around, chasing butterflies and trying to catch grasshoppers. They lay on the blanket afterward, looking up at the sky, pointing out shapes in the clouds. It was nothing extravagant, nothing expensive, but they were all laughing and content. James realized he hadn't felt this carefree in years. He felt grateful for the ordinary, for the simplicity of the moment. As months went by, the Carters' perspective on life began to change. They no longer measured happiness by vacations, gadgets, or big achievements. They found joy in cooking together, in reading bedtime stories, in quiet evenings when the rain pattered against the window. Ethan and Luke learned to appreciate small victories, finishing a tricky puzzle, drawing a picture, or helping set the table. James and Emily discovered that happiness could be found in holding hands during a walk, in sharing a smile over morning coffee, or in a gentle hug after a long day. One evening, after dinner, the family gathered in the living room. Luke had brought out a small board game, and the 4 of them played while sharing funny stories. At one point, Emily noticed James laughing so wholeheartedly that she felt a lump in her throat. "I used to think happiness was something far away," she whispered to him, but now I see it's been right here, all along, in these little moments." James nodded, squeezing her hand. "I think we were too busy looking for something grand to notice what was right in front of us." Even on days filled with stress, bills, or minor disagreements, the Carters reminded themselves to look for small joys. They began to practice gratitude as a family, each member sharing one thing that made them happy before bedtime. Some nights it was as simple as a tasty dinner or a warm shower, other nights, it was a joke or a shared laugh. Over time, they realized that by focusing on these small moments, life felt lighter, and their bonds as a family grew stronger. The change also affected James and Emily individually. James found satisfaction in small acts at work, a job well done, a grateful customer, or a repaired engine that ran perfectly. Emily discovered fulfillment in creative projects, in a tidy home, and in the laughter of her children. They both understood that happiness wasn't a distant goal, it was cultivated, nurtured in the ordinary moments of life. One crisp autumn morning, the family went on a hike in a nearby forest. The trees were ablaze with reds, oranges, and yellows, and the leaves crunched under their feet. Ethan and Luke raced ahead, giggling as James and Emily walked behind, hand in hand. They paused at a clearing where the sunlight filtered through the branches, illuminating the forest floor. Emily looked at her family, her heart swelling with gratitude. She realized that these were the moments she would carry forever: the sun on her face, the laughter of her sons, the warmth of her husband beside her. Years passed, and the Carters continued their simple traditions. They learned to celebrate small victories: finishing a school project, cooking a meal together, completing a challenging home repair, or even just enjoying a quiet evening as a family. Happiness became a habit, a way of noticing the beauty and joy in the ordinary. When Ethan graduated high school and Luke prepared to enter middle school, Emily and James reflected on the journey they had taken together. Life had its challenges, but they had discovered the secret that so many overlook. True happiness isn't found in grand gestures or monumental events, it's found in the small things, the fleeting moments that fill each day with love, laughter, and connection. Sitting together on the porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, James wrapped an arm around Emily. "I think we finally understand what it means to be happy," he said softly. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder and smiled. "Yes," she replied, "it's the little things that matter the most." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the love of their children, the laughter of their family, and the beauty of everyday life, the Carters felt a deep, enduring happiness that had grown not from grand achievements, but from the simple, ordinary joys that life had always offered. They had learned that by appreciating the small things, they could live fully, love deeply, and find contentment in every passing days.